You'd agree, sirs, that there is nothing precluding your service from reopening the investigation against Justin Trudeau should new evidence become available, including a release of cabinet confidential information.
Oh, shit.
This is a clip taken from our previous live stream breakdown of the Ethics Committee on February 27th, 2024. You can find the links to the full live stream replay as well as the original committee video in the description.
Let's take a look.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, Commissioner. Good morning, Sergeant. Thank you for your attendance. I hope your attendance today is fulsome, that we get through the full committee without receiving a notice of motion to adjourn.
Okay, so the shade is being thrown right out of the outset.
Shots fired.
Wow. I don't blame him, though, because I'm sure Mr. Brock and Cooper and everybody else was actually impressed that they got his opening statement, to be honest. So
Probably.
So they're probably 5 minutes into this hearing longer than they thought they'd be.
At the heart of the SNC-Lavalin scandal, there were a number of players within the PMO, the PCO, and the Ministry of Finance. However, the principal person of interest in the SNC scandal was at all material times the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. To you, Commissioner, the scandal is now over 5 years old. When did the RCMP interview Justin Trudeau?
I'll let Mr. Pain-Sains further discuss about the interviews, but it is 5 years old, and the matter was brought to our attention in 2019 and officially concluded in January 2023, in which we notified Madame Wilson-Raybould as well as Mr. Scheer, who had written a letter to the Commissioner Lucky at the time.
Thank you, Commissioner. The question was very specific. How many times in the last 5 years did you interview Justin Trudeau?
He was not interviewed, sir, or Mr. President.
Okay, and why not?
I'll ask Mr. Pain-Sains, who was leading the investigation, to add a little bit.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So, in relation to this, what the RCMP conducted as far as for the objective for the review of the matter, what we've done is we've proceeded with a phased approach, which initially we looked at the potential witnesses that could provide some information as far as to precision for the elements of the offense. So we proceeded in this phased approach. As we proceeded, we determined if there was any further investigative steps that were warranted given the circumstances of the case.
My time is very limited. Why did you not interview the primary person of interest? At the heart of this investigation was Justin Trudeau's political interference for his own personal gain and the gain of SNC-Lavalin. I can inform both of you gentlemen that in my over 30 years of experience as a defense counsel and as a Crown attorney, I have never heard of any investigation where there wasn't any attempt, whether they agreed to interview or not, any attempt to interview the person of interest. Was there at least an attempt to interview Justin Trudeau, yes or no?
No.
Did the RCMP obtain all relevant documents to further the investigation, including access to cabinet confidential information, simply seeking a yes or no response?
We were limited with the information that we had access to.
Was that a yes or a no, sir?
I don't know. We didn't know. We don't know. We still don't know to this day all the information that's out there because some was protected.
I'll take that as a no. Despite collecting reams of evidence, including evidence from the Ethics Commissioner and testimony from Jody Wilson-Raybould at committee, why didn't the RCMP exercise its absolute statutory right under the Criminal Code of Canada to obtain a production order and/or search warrant from a justice to obtain those cabinet documents?
That's an interesting point. Okay, so according to Mr. Brock, and we'll take his word for it, but we haven't fact-checked this, but according to Mr. Brock, I guess the RCMP can get around cabinet confidence, and maybe they're gonna respond to that. But they can get around cabinet confidence via a search warrant, which is a production order. And what that is so the RCMP goes to a court and they provide a rationale and justification in asking for a search warrant and a production order. And what that is they, if granted, and they would be asking that based on the evidence of a criminal investigation and justification to see more evidence, the judge would either grant or deny that request. So, assuming that it was granted, they would then march into Parliament Hill or wherever these documents could be located, produce the search warrant, and say, give us all of the information that's protected by cabinet confidence as it relates to SNC-Lavalin. So that's very interesting. Very, very interesting. This kind of goes back to a conversation that we had with Diane Sylvain about this, and whether or not legislation was needed or not, but so maybe it's not.
We weren't able to acquire or obtain enough information or evidence that would warrant us to obtain a production order.
RCMP spokesperson Christy Veenstra is on record stating that to obtain a search warrant or production order, there must be reasonable grounds to believe that a criminal offense has been committed. The evidence at hand is sufficient to convince a trier of fact. The evidence at hand is insufficient to convince a trier of fact of the alleged offense. Clearly, she is conflating the legal threshold of policing with the Crown Prosecution Service. Both of you, sirs, will agree that your sole responsibility is to determine whether there are reasonable and probable grounds to lay a charge. It is not your mandate to prove the charge beyond a reasonable doubt, which is the independent prosecution service. Would you agree with that?
I agree, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Was obstruction of justice involving Justin Trudeau the only offense you were contemplating in this regard?
No, there's also intimidation of a justice participant.
Thank you. You would agree that the charge of obstruction is a straight indictable offense, meaning there is no limitation period, punishable by 10 years in prison, a very serious offense. You'd agree, sirs, that there is nothing precluding your service from reopening the investigation against Justin Trudeau should new evidence become available, including a release of cabinet confidential information.
Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Oh my God. Does everybody understand what he just said? I'll get to it in... Oh my goodness. Wow. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, that was a threat and not a veiled threat. Basically what Brock is saying is, so when we get into power and we implement some legislation that allows us to open that cabinet confidence and we release it, you'd be able to investigate it then, right? Wow. Wow, wow, wow. That's crazy, folks. I know I'm just saying wow, but that's huge. And they dropped that gauntlet right in front of Justin Trudeau. Holy moly. Okay, so to deconstruct that a little bit for those that don't understand, no problem. So what Brock he's he's more talking to Canadians than he is asking a question. But what he was saying is that a charge of obstruction of justice has no statute of limitations, meaning so certain crimes have a statute of limitations, meaning from the time that the offense was allegedly committed, there is a limitation of time in which that person could actually be investigated and brought to justice on it. Sometimes it's 7 years, 10 years, whatever the crime is. What this means is that it could be 20 years from now, and they could reopen this investigation on SNC-Lavalin, possibly find evidence of Justin Trudeau, convict him, and send him to jail 20 years from now. There is no limit on that investigation. So that's number one. And number two, he's saying, so if you were to be provided evidence from the cabinet confidence, which this is what the RCMP is essentially saying, well, we didn't have enough evidence because it was all blocked from us seeing by cabinet confidence, then they could reopen the investigation and go after Justin Trudeau again when he's a private citizen. So that's number two. What is cabinet confidence? Cabinet confidence is it is a way to classify documents, meaning to keep them secret from literally everybody except cabinet. So it's often done in the Privy Council, where they are reviewing documents and everything like that, and they can just say to the Privy Council clerk, that's cabinet confidence, and they stamp it, and once it's stamped, it is essentially sealed, and they can't get it. So the problem here, and what is being outlined, is the evidence needed in order to actually request the warrant to get cabinet confidence is actually within cabinet confidence itself. That's basically kind of what they're talking about here. And so what Brock's saying is, well, once we're in power, we'll be happy to give that to you. And then you guys can reopen that investigation, right, RCMP? So that is amazing. Let's continue.
I would say, Mr. Chair, with any investigation, when there's new information that arises, yes, we have a look at the investigation itself.
To quell public concern, Justin Trudeau, despite his office, is subject to the full impact and consequences of the Criminal Code of Canada. He is not above the law, correct?
I do believe I said that last time I was in front of the committee. No one's above the law.
In my experience, sirs, homicides have been investigated and prosecuted in lesser time than your service has invested in investigating Justin Trudeau. Is there an overall general reluctance in charging a sitting prime minister, yes or no?
I would say to that, Mr. Chair, is that we follow the evidence, and if the evidence warrants charges, we charge.
So there's no general reluctance in charging a sitting prime minister. Is that correct?
If the appropriate evidence is available.
Thank you.
I don't believe that. Even if these were good, I don't want to say that these are good or bad guys, because this is really, I think, the second time I've seen them in committee. So I can't judge them on their conduct. I can't judge them on their work. But let's say these guys are upstanding, like best of the best, great morals, great pursuit of justice. Anybody would be very, very anxious about charging a sitting prime minister. Come on. I don't care who it is. You would be very anxious about doing that, because you would want to make darn sure you got it right.
Yeah, because could you imagine being the guy that falsely arrested a sitting prime minister? Like any prime minister, it doesn't have to be Trudeau, just any of them. That would be the end of your career. You would never get hired anywhere ever again.
Because just think about it. Because I don't believe, I know in modern history, no sitting prime minister has ever been arrested. Never mind convicted. Modern history.
Oh, I don't know if that's okay. Modern history. All right.
That's why I said modern history.
I know, because I had done a deep dive on this a while back, like 6 months ago, and there was 4 of them that were arrested, and I don't recall if they were sitting at the time or if they were prime minister and then got arrested later. But there have been 4 in Canada's history.
Yeah. So yeah, it's something. Again, you would want to be darn sure, because that's going to be very public, very quick, and have massive effects on geopolitical relations and everything. So I imagine these guys would want to be darn sure. I think they would be much less reluctant after he's gone. So
hopefully
this is where it would be interesting.
You would agree that the purpose behind the offense of obstruction of justice is to maintain the integrity of the justice system and upholding the rule of law, that all the principles that were articulated in Jody Wilson-Raybould's testimony in warding off Justin Trudeau's relentless campaign of pressure and intimidation. You'll agree with me, Commissioner, the evidence is clear. This is not a one-off.